I would like to introduce you guys to Param Upadhyay. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, and he will be presenting all about the Dean's List Award. Param, you may take the floor.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Got to rep this first can of swag. So I suppose I'll just start sharing, and producers, if at any time you want to hop in and share thoughts, feel more than free to do that. And I'm just hoping to make this a nice informal presentation where it's informative for everybody. So let me just share my presentation real quick. I'm hoping that everyone can see this fine. If so, I'll just get going, I suppose. So I have a nice little title slide that I can see over here because who doesn't love the Alpha Dog aesthetic? Anyways, so welcome to this presentation. This is going to be a comprehensive guide to the Dean's List Award. All opinions are my own, of course. I'm Param Upadhyay, Param as in parameter, Upadhyay as in Upadhyay. I'm an alumni from Team 4946, the Alpha Dogs, and I was a first robotics competition 2019 Dean's List Award winner. So let's just get to basics and figure out what is the Dean's List Award for those mentors that may have not submitted previously or are curious or just seeing this recording perhaps on the website later and just want to know a little bit more. I hope that this can be a little bit of a resource for you. So Dean's List is an opportunity for your FRC or FTC team, now that we have them in Ontario, to recognize individuals who have contributed greatly to the success of your team and are leaders. And as a quote from the website, this award celebrates outstanding student leaders whose passion for and effectiveness at attaining first ideals is exemplary. And I also think that this is a great way for first to strengthen their alumni groups because people who win the Dean's List Award or are semifinalists or finalists are always more likely to stay involved. And the way that the award is submitted is that the mentors will go through their portal and they're going to be writing an essay for the nominee, and then the nominee goes through an interview process at competitions. And the most important part is that it's a way for you to get inside Dean Kamen's house legally. And if anybody wants to hear more about that in the Twitch chat, just let me know and I will definitely tell you all you ever want to know about Dean Kamen's house. Sorry, just give me a second. I'm having some screen sharing issues. Interesting. Let me just stop sharing and get back into sharing for just 1 second. Thank you. Okay, there we are, we're back. Anyways, so let me just take you through a little bit of the journey that the Dean's List Award has taken me on, because for me, I can personally say that this award has been absolutely life-changing for me, and it has introduced me to so many new experiences and new things, and the people I've met through this are absolutely incredible. So there on the left is a photo of myself, my mentor, Tibor, who's now at 6'10", and Woody Flowers at the luncheon that you're invited to if you're a finalist at Worlds. And I was looking through this presentation yesterday, and I only just noticed that Woody has his hand on my shoulder, and that made me absolutely melt. And I also happen to have a picture of this on my desk, just because that was such a special moment for me. And also, the Dean's List Summit is an absolutely incredible experience that I'm going to talk a little bit more about. But honestly, when I started the Dean's List journey, I suppose, I had no expectations of where it would turn out, and I had no idea the experiences I would have as a result of it. But I'm so incredibly honored that it happened to me, and it's absolutely changed my life. And I just want to share a little story that I have about Woody from the Dean's List Luncheon, just because it was one of the moments that changed my viewpoint on everything that happens in first and the way I view myself and the world around me. So after the luncheon was over, we had all our photos taken, everything on the stage was done, they were taking the screens down. I just saw Woody sort of introspecting to himself in the corner. And so I approached him. I was just like generically just went up, just asking for life advice. My career aspiration is to become a professor. So I asked Woody just offhandedly, like, you're a professor that I've really looked up to for a really long time. Do you have any advice for me? And as we know, in typical Woody fashion, launches into the full gracious professionalism, you know, line of thought. It's almost as if I was seeing one of those good stuff with Woody videos, but in person. Absolutely incredible to listen to. But Matt just went on and on and on. That like for straight 20 minutes, like uninterrupted, he was just going on about gracious professionalism and how if you imbibe it into your life, it can change your entire outlook. And something that really stuck with me was is that at one point an assistant came up to him and was like, "Hey, we gotta go. We got sponsors waiting. Got to take pictures with them." And Woody was like, "The sponsors can wait. I want to finish this conversation first." And that really made me realize that Woody truly cares about every single student at FRC. And I feel like that's exemplified through all the mentors that we have in FIRST, that quality of caring about every single student. And I feel like the Dean's List Award is kind of a really nice opportunity to just show that sort of, we recognize you as a student. We recognize your contributions to the team. And I found that moment to be very special for me. And I hope that, you also enjoyed hearing this story. So, stuff you get if you win. This is, I don't think it's a comprehensive list, but I think it's got almost everything. So you get the Dean's List Summit, you get a scholarship to a WPI Frontier Summer Program. WPI is one of the universities that sort of invests in Dean's List. You get some free airplane tickets, you get a very nifty bag actually, I'll show you. Honestly, pretty nice. Pretty nice. You didn't hear that, but yes, pretty nice. You get a trophy, you get a plaque, you get a pin, you get a hat, and you get a Dean's List polo shirt, which unfortunately mine was a bit too big, but that's fine. You also get an Amazon gift card, a water bottle, and a really soft teddy bear. Now, I just want to elaborate a little bit more on the Dean's List Summit because, and I guess the summer program associated with it because it happened right after. And I just want to talk a little bit about what happened. I'm not going to go into full details, but well, we did go to Dean Kamen's house, so might as well talk a little bit about that. So what they do is that they'll bring you to a hotel with all the other Dean's List winners from all over the world. And the first day is some incredibly awkward icebreakers, but who doesn't love an awkward icebreaker? And then we have 2 full jam-packed days of activities where you're starting from I think it was 6 a.m. and then you're ending very late at night every single day. It was a completely jam-packed schedule. But we had so many things. We went on a tour of First Place, which is the FIRST headquarters. We went on a tour of Dean Kamen's house. He has some incredible knickknacks. He has a scaled model of the Wright brothers airplane. He has a very cool airplane hangar that we had dinner in, which was really fun at the sponsor dinner that they host. And we also toured MIT and things like that, as you saw in the last slide. You saw the picture of that. And that was honestly a very, very rewarding experience because there was so many things coming in at once where you just realize the scale of FIRST. And then the other aspect of it that I really enjoyed was the Frontier Summer Program. So if a future Dean's List winner is watching this, absolutely take that opportunity and go to the summer program. Sure, it may be online, but even then, fantastic opportunity to meet people and to actually get closer to your fellow Dean's List people, because I can truly say without a doubt that the other winners are some of the most incredible people that I've ever met, and they inspire me every single day. So honestly, if you win, go for it. So, okay, I think that's enough of that. And now let's actually get into the nitty-gritty of the award itself. Oh, okay, I lied. Before that, we're going to talk about applying. So I feel that everybody in FIRST, including FIRST HQ to FIRST Canada, would want me to drill this message into your heads is that you absolutely want to apply. This is a chance at, recognizing a student for the contribution that they have made to your team. So apply, 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 apply. And the same goes for scholarships. So apply, 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 apply. But for me, in this case, specifically to Dean's List, absolutely, if your team has the means to apply for Dean's List and can spare the resources and really wants to just nominate a student and thank them for their hard work, I think Dean's List is a fantastic means to do so. Okay, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty. So what is the specific judging structure for the Dean's List Award? So there is a 4,000 character essay, and there's also additional information submitted by the mentor before the deadline. So the 4,000 character essay, I think you'll find is not as long as you think it is. So it's very difficult to say if you have a really amazing student, it's going to be quite difficult for you to cram all the information that you want to in there. And that's okay, but sometimes you're just going to have to pick and choose like, oh, did this thing contribute more to who this nominee as a person is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is honestly a very, very difficult thing to do for any mentor just because the students are so incredible. But yes, that is the 4,000 character essay. Also, there is additional info that needs to be submitted by the mentor. So the additional info in this case is going to be things like academic marks and things like that. So I'm pretty sure it's like you can specify, give some information. Like for example, on the website, I think it's like, like 3.9 on a 4.0 scale, 4.1 on a 4.0 scale weighted, 95% out of 100%. Those types of things is what they're looking for. And I'm pretty sure they're asking for the average. So, but I just want to make this really clear to any mentors that could be watching this. It's not really a question of, oh, will this nominee, benefit more from Dean's List if they have a 2% higher average? Or, oh, the students have made equal contributions to our team, but one of them has a 95 average and one of them has a 90 average. Oh, I guess that means I have to nominate the 95%. No, that's absolutely not the case. That's not the judging criteria at all. They're definitely going to be judging them on the merit of their essay and their contributions to the team. So, and honestly, if you want to, just nominate them both because you can make two submissions. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, marks are important, of course, in life in general, but there's things more than that. First is more than marks in this case. So absolutely, doesn't really matter what your marks are. I'm just going to say submit them regardless if you think that they're a good fit. So moving on to the interviews. So for Ontario specifically, there are interviews at your district events and at district championships. And then there is no interview at the championship, as you can imagine, just because of the sheer volume of people. I'm pretty sure in 2019, there were 226 people in that room. So I'm pretty sure they can't get around to interviewing them all, of course. So that makes sense. So that means that you just have to make your interviews at district events and district champs absolutely count, because the notes that the judges take over there is what the people at Worlds are going to be receiving along with the essay. So you just want to make sure to nail those. And interview schedules are now randomized. If they weren't randomized, I would say totally just take the interview slot before lunch, because who doesn't want judges to think about you while they're eating, because food is good. But now they're randomized, so unfortunately you can't do that. The champs judging, as I said before, is going to be determined by the essay and your judges' notes from the previous interviews. And in a sense, I would consider ourselves in the district system to be kind of lucky, because that means that you get two opportunities to prove yourself and show how awesome you really are, compared to, say, the other system where you would only get one round, which is going to be at your regional event, I suppose. And then you're just going to get like the one round of notes, and that's going to be sent to champs. And of course, there are merits and cons of both. But specifically in the context of Dean's List, I think that the district structure suits it more and gives you more opportunities to show off different things if you really want to. Like maybe you could go off and talk about your technical expertise in the first one. And then if you get through the first round and you get recognized at that event, then perhaps at finalists, you could talk more about your outreach or something like that. Not saying that's what you should do, but it could work. So I just want to clear up something about the specific wording of things, because I know it can get very confusing. So all Dean's List nominees, like if you're put forward by your team, then you are a semi-finalist, because they want to keep it consistent with the ones in the regional model and the district model. However, there are semi-finalists that are recognized at district events. So at your district events, there's going to be two people that are recognized, and those will be the people who are eligible to interview at district champs. So in 2019, it was 20 people being interviewed at DCMP. And then those 20 people will get on their interviews at DCMP. And then if you win at DCMP, then you'll be a finalist. There were 5 at from Ontario in 2019. Also, I'm pretty sure now that FDC does get their own slots. So that is always a bonus. We love to have more finalists from Ontario, Red Hoodie Gang. And of course, it's going to allow you to compete for the award at Champs. And the winners of the Dean's List Award in general are revealed at the Dean's List Luncheon at Champs. The Dean's List Luncheon is this nice little event. You get like this fun little, forget what they're called, the things that you stick on your world's badges. And you know, you get to hear Dean make his famously nice and long speeches. We love to hear it. And there's a whole bunch of people from a couple of universities. You have people from the Air Force, all these types of fun things, and they feed you, so pretty fun. And I guess you can talk to Woody and Dean after, so that's always a plus. Okay, so this is what you as mentors should look for in a nominee. Also, producers, if there are any questions so far, you can just interrupt me at any time, but if not, I'm going to keep going. So I'm just going to go through each step of the criteria for the Dean's List Award and just walk everybody through what my interpretations sort of are of each thing, because these are great points, but they tend to be a little bit vague. So let me just try to elucidate a little bit, I suppose. So this is the criteria as it says on the website. So demonstrated leadership and commitment to the first core values. Okay, so what does this mean? So let's just look at the first part of that. So demonstrated leadership can be on many different scales. So leadership could be something, starting from maybe leading a sub-team or leading a project of the robot. Maybe they're leading like specifically the shooter design, for example. Then that is something you can talk about. But leadership can also be, being in a mentoring role. Maybe as a third-year student, they're now mentoring first years to step into roles and ensure team sustainability. Maybe they have something that they're really passionate about. Maybe they start a new outreach initiative. Maybe they're getting involved with First Canada. Maybe they're doing all sorts of these cool things. So that's something that you want to highlight in the demonstrated leadership part. And commitment to the first core values, well, they're discovery, innovation, impact, inclusion, teamwork, fun. And honestly, you can interweave these through the essay as you like. And of course, I feel like most, first students do have these characteristics already. But if you see somebody who, really likes to innovate, or really make sure that everybody on the team is included, or maybe just, somebody who really loves team spirit, likes to have fun, well, that's something you can highlight. So second thing, effectiveness at increasing awareness of first in the school and community. So this means, are they actively, involved in outreach efforts? Are they trying to get, new members recruited for their team? Are they participating in community events? Are they organizing things with sponsors? Do they want to perhaps, try to get a robot demo going on? These types of things. So first really likes to look for candidates in Dean's List specifically that can, sort of serve as ambassadors. So if you can have a candidate who likes to, present the glories of first, then that is somebody who the Dean's List judging criteria does look for. So interested in passion for a long-term commitment to first. So what does a long-term commitment mean? So this basically means that as alumni, we want to see these people coming back, whether it be as a mentor, whether it be as a volunteer, where, it could be any role really. It just means that they want to make sure that the person is going to want to stay involved. Like for me personally, as soon as I meet the age requirement, I definitely want to start judging FRC events, because I feel like that would be a ton of fun. And that is the part of FRC that drew me the most. For those that don't know me, I was the pit spokesperson, I suppose, for 49 to 46. So I would do all like the judge presentations. I'd be preparing the booklets for like, the engineering log and things like that. So I really enjoy doing that thing. And then, that really clicked for me that I want to get involved again as a judge. So say maybe someone really likes, the idea of reffing an event, they just find that to be super cool. They want to make sure everybody's playing by the rules. Then perhaps you can say that, or you can say if you've seen that in a student, then you can definitely be like, hey, maybe somebody who you want to consider for Dean's List. So overall individual contribution to their team. So this is now going to get into the individual things that the student has done so that their team can succeed. So for example, in my case, it was things like starting up like this engineering law, pioneering awards, like submissions and things like that. And this can be varied over every single team because of course every team, when a freshman is coming in, they're going to be starting at a different point. All teams have different resources, but you just want to frame it in the context of your team. What has been the individual's contribution? So say your team didn't have an outreach division before, and this person took the initiative and they decided to start an outreach division. Then that would be a huge contribution that they've made. So that's something you want to look for. Or it could even be a technical contribution. Like you can say that, okay, well, perhaps our team didn't use CAD before. And this person took the initiative to learn how to use CAD all by themselves. And then they taught a whole bunch of other people, and now our whole team CADs. Well, not our whole team, but a whole sub-team, for example. Then you could definitely put that in here. And that ties in well to the second point where it's technical expertise and passion. Like, are they getting involved in, and I guess the word technical theory here kind of implies that they're only looking for people that are like, I don't know, in the machine shop or manning the CNC or CADing. That's not necessarily true. It can also be things like, are they an expert at presenting things, which ties into the next point, entrepreneurship, or are they an expert at, creating like branding packages or something, or have they made you some really nice merch? Anything really counts. So technical expertise is more broad than you may think, and passion is pretty straightforward. Entrepreneurship and creativity. So this means, this is, I think, in my opinion, is kind of code speak for how well do they mesh with sponsors. Like, have they done sponsorship presentations? Have they done outreach things? Have they, gotten your team out there type of things? So I think that entrepreneurship also ties into things like the business plan, chairman's presentation. All these things would naturally lend itself very well to this criterion for Dean's List. But for example, say if you have a student that went and landed a 10K sponsorship for your team, absolutely incredible potential Dean's List candidate. And ability to motivate and lead fellow team members, this one is pretty straightforward, but if you notice that you have a real like leader in your team, everyone recognizes them, everyone respects them, then again, something to look for. Okay, so this is a continuation. So these are kind of my own ideas. So not specifically, on the first website or anything, but this is just what I think. So I think that you want to find somebody who exemplifies the values of first, like everything that was just on the last side, and is a good representative for the organization, wants to stay involved with first after high school, and is skilled in their field. So that was just summarizing everything on the last side. And I think that the nomination is not simply of like, oh, I really want this person to win at Worlds, so this is why I'm going to nominate this person. I would probably personally treat the Dean's List nomination as in our team recognizes the hard work and effort that this individual has put into it, trying to make our team a better place, trying to make a community a better place, really has a passion and drive for achieving the first ideals and always acts with gracious professionalism and things like that. And it's not, and I don't think it should be like about gunning for the award. It's just more of a way to recognize the hard work that somebody has put into it. That's the way I would honestly look at it. And the last two things are also things that I've kind of added. So I would say pick a walking, talking chairman's presentation. Now, what does this really mean? Like, I feel like the most successful candidates are the ones that are able to regurgitate everything and anything about their team. I guess regurgitate was a wrong word, but they're about to speak with such passion and candor about their team that it's infectious, I guess also a bad word choice considering the current pandemic that we're in. But you want to be able to get other people excited about STEM. You want to get other people excited about FIRST. And I feel that if your candidate can do such a thing, then they'll be very effective. Because when it comes to that interview process, yet again, that candidate is going to have to excite the judges. They're going to have to make them furiously passionate about their story. So that's why you want to have this sort of walking, talking chairman's presentation. And that's not to say that, if you have somebody who isn't like that, they're not going to do well. But I just feel that, perhaps somebody who's able to put themselves out there has a better chance at being successful just because of the way that the award is set up, just because there is that speaking portion to it. But however, with like, a lot of practice, anybody can get to this point. So of course, you can just practice your interview beforehand, and anybody can become a walking, talking chairman's presentation. But hey, if somebody's naturally like that, well, then less work for you to do. And the last thing is pick a first poster child, because, first really likes having poster children. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, they want people to stay involved with the organization. They want people to, be passionate about their ideals. And if you have a nominee that's passionate about the same things and has the same goals, then Dean's List will most likely be a very good fit. Alrighty, so let's take a look at the essay structure, because as I mentioned before, 4,000 characters is really, really short. So how can we most effectively condense everything into a place where we can have it optimal and have it, have the essay be as powerful as possible? Because you have to understand that the judges at championship don't get to interview your candidate. They won't get to see them face to face. They won't get to see that passion that you get to see them with. So you as a mentor, you're basically saying that, okay, this essay is my opportunity to show those judges at champs, or show anybody really, how incredible my student is. And just, treat it as if you're pitching your student to somebody else. Like, say you were giving them like a letter of recommendation for a job or something, or like for a university. That's kind of the same sort of enthusiasm to which you want to approach this essay. And again, this is the only variable in the equation you can control, so ensure it's in your favor. And by that, do I mean that you can't control the interview? No, of course you can control the interview. You can do super well in the interview. But the interviews tend to be more subjective, because everybody has a different judge. Say some judge takes like more enthusiastic notes just by the nature of who they are. Well, that's something you have less control over. But the essay is going to be the essay, and nobody else can like change that or anything. So this is the thing that you can control, so you want to go for it. So you want to have a clear logical structure and flow. And I have a structure that I like to recommend, but of course anything works. And also I just wanted to mention about the nominees. I feel like if you feel that you have a nominee that's like really deserving but doesn't really meet any of the criteria that I was talking about, like they're not a walking, talking chairman's presentation or something, honestly, doesn't matter. You're the mentor and you know your students best. And if you feel that somebody's deserving, go for it, nominate them. Because again, at the end of the day, it's just a chance for your team to show their appreciation for that student, basically. Anyways, back to the essay. So this is from the first website that I've just screenshotted. When writing the essay, you want to address as many of the criteria as possible and keep the following in mind. So you want to address, how is a student a leader? So I've mentioned this a little bit before, but now in the essay, you really want to make sure that you're highlighting what the student does on your team. So you want to make sure that you say all the things that they've been a part of. So be like, okay, they led this design subsystem, they led electrical, they led the chairman's presentation, they led certain like outreach activity, maybe did a robot demo. Any type of thing in which the student is a leader, you definitely want to demonstrate that in your essay. How has the student helped increase the awareness of FIRST? So again, tying back to what I said earlier, if they're trying to increase the awareness of their FIRST in their own school, that's great. So for example, if they're recruiting students, if they're speaking at assemblies or things like that, trying to get people recruited onto the team, fantastic. Also, you can also have, I said also too many times, you can also have community events. So for example, if you want to try to spread the FIRST name in your community, so maybe you want to do a sponsor event, or maybe you want to demo your robot at a library or something like that. Those are all incredible ways that students can get involved in increasing awareness of FIRST. So definitely think that if a student has done any of these things, something to mention. Okay, so next point, describe the student's interest and passion that demonstrates their long-term commitment to FIRST. So I think that now getting into more of a technical aspect of an essay, I have this on the next slide too, but just want to say it here because why not? I strongly believe that every single essay should have a theme. It shouldn't just read off like a resume. It shouldn't be like, this candidate has done X, Y, Z. they led this thing. They're a total superstar in the shop. They, help rake in so much money for the team. All these things are fantastic, but you want to try to set your nominee apart from the pack, I suppose. So that's why I would highly recommend having a theme to your essay. So, for example, the theme that I had when I was doing my Dean's List interview process, I don't know how exactly this was, if this was completely reflected in the essay or not, but in my interviews, I kind of made my theme the fact that I want to give back to the community that gave me so much. So I told them my entire story, and which I will briefly share with you now, is that I immigrated to Canada, and then my parents always took me to the library every single week. And suddenly one week, I noticed that there was a flyer on the wall for an FLL team that was started in the library by team 1241, Theory 6. And I was like, absolutely, I want to get involved in this, even as a little kid. I'm like, I just want to play with Legos. But that was the thing that kind of sparked my interest in first at the very beginning. And then that led to me getting involved in FRC in high school. So it was a very full circle type of story. And then what I said is that I wanted to ensure that other people have the same experience that I had. I want to make sure that everybody has, get that same spark when they're a child that I had. So that was something that I really tried to demonstrate in my interview. But say you as a mentor already know that this person has a certain spark or something, you can definitely mention this in the essay as well. And that will only help to bolster this sort of application. And interest and passion that demonstrates a long-term commitment to first. So perhaps you can even mention an industry that your student may be interested in. Maybe they're interested in computer science. Maybe you want to be an engineer. Maybe they're like me and they want to be a professor of physics. It doesn't really matter as long as you can connect it to the passion that they have and their commitment to first. Like, for example, for me, I want to get into judging as soon as I meet that age requirement, but you want to make sure to mention everything. So describing the student's technical expertise. So again, you want to make sure, this person learned CAD over the course of a summer, and then they taught everybody else. They're an absolute pro. Or you can be like, oh, this person, really took a liking to electrical in their first week, and then they just went off from there, and now they're the leader of this subsystem, and they've taught so many others, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You kind of get the gist. Describe the student's entrepreneurship and creativity. Well, that's going to be talking about what I said earlier on the last slide about interacting with sponsors, doing sponsorship presentations, et cetera, et cetera. And again, now this is very specific, that what are the students' individual contributions to outreach or fundraising efforts? So this is where first kind of wants the nitty gritty of what this person specifically has done, not the team itself. So for example, say you have a sponsorship presentation team, because I know that was something that 4946 had, and I was on that team as well, where we would go on do little presentations for different sponsors, for example, Canadian Tire or Bolton Rotary and Amazon. So we'd go to certain events that they had, and then we do robot demonstrations, share a little bit what the team was about. We would show off the robot. We would, talk about money. Obviously, we're there to get money. And then that was something that I mentioned in my interviews. And I think that, this is a box that I sort of ticked off. So I think that it definitely helps if your student has, gone out there, shown some initiative, and just landed a big sponsorship or something. That's fantastic. If not, honestly, no biggie, but it's just good to have. And same thing with the last point, what are the students' individual contribution to the team, whether it's building, programming, team captain, etc. You just want to highlight that role, basically. And the last thing I would like to stress, because I have seen this a lot when people ask me to edit essays, for example, it's not necessarily include the students' activities outside of first, focus on first for activities. Yes. So I've seen a lot of essays where they're perhaps talking about oh, they're an Eagle Scout or something, or et cetera, mostly talking about American essays that are edited. But it's honestly, the judges are only going to really be focusing on the first related activities. And again, 4,000 characters, not a lot of space. So you only want to focus on things related to first. Because say if they are that passionate about being an Eagle Scout, then they can just say that in the interview. That takes maybe 30 seconds to say, but it's also 40 characters. So a bit of a trade-off. honestly not even 30 seconds to say. So definitely in the essay, only talk about first related things. So this is a sample essay structure that I would recommend using if you don't really have a starting point to go off of. But you can honestly do whatever you like, all up to you, but this is just a sample. So I guess in the intro that I would try to show the passion of the student, maybe, start things off with some adjectives, talk about how enthusiastic they are about, spreading STEM. Maybe they really jumped into their role as a programming captain, et cetera, et cetera. If your team doesn't have captains or whatever, doesn't really matter. Just be like, they really embrace the role of programmer or something. And then you want to establish an overall theme of the essay. So for teams that do chairman's submissions, I would say that you want to have a similar dean's list theme as you do like a chairman's presentation theme. Obviously, it's not going to be the exact same. Like I know for like chairman's presentations, our team had like this sort of phrase that was like expanding the path, where we talked about our outreach efforts. Well, you want to kind of tailor a theme to like that student. Like, what is that student stood for over the course of their first career? What are their ideals that they strive for? And you really want to share their story instead of just being like a resume of like a list of things that you've done. Because again, at the end of the day, those judges out worlds won't get to see you face to face. So this is a really nice point where you can share the humanity of that student and, really make sure that the judges get a sense of what's going on with that student and how amazing they are. So usually I recommend 3 body paragraphs, and I'd be going local to global. What does that mean? So you probably want to start off talking about things that they've done on their team, then talk about things that they've done in their community. And if they have something like this, then talk about their global, international type of outreach efforts and how, and at the end of each thing, you want to make sure that connects back to the theme. Like, how does doing X activity, how does, starting this community mentorship program for like FLL, for example, tie into that student's overall theme? And you want to be giving detailed descriptions of activities, responsibilities, and initiatives. Now, why do you want to do that? Because again, 7 minutes in an interview, not a lot of time. So you want to be going, you want to pack in as much info as possible, because the judges can be in the judges lounge, lounging around and reading the essays, and they have all the time in the world really to annotate and look over everything. So it'll take a lot of pressure off the actual nominee if you are able to do that. And you want to tie everything back to your key theme. Also, something you want to show whether a student is well-rounded and involved in anything, or if they specialize in one specific thing. Honestly, both things are really good. Like, say somebody has a super, super strong passion for CAD and they just revolutionized your entire CAD team. They moved to like, I don't know, Fusion 360, et cetera, et cetera. You can definitely talk about that. Or if your student is more well-rounded, maybe I'm not saying the other one isn't well-rounded. I'm just saying like, maybe this person likes to get involved in everything. They like to hop around. They'll get their, hands dirty in every single thing. Then definitely talk about that too, because that really shows their passion as well. And again, highlight your mentorship and leadership of your nominee, because that's a quality that they're really looking for. And honestly, for the conclusion, tie it back to the theme and keep it super short. Like, I think for my essay, the one that my mentor wrote for me, I think the ending was only like 1 or 2 sentences. Like, because you only have so many characters, so pack as much stuff as you can into the body. And just for a conclusion, just tie it back to the theme. Be like, and due to X, Y, Z, this nominee is committed to spreading the ideals of FIRST. Something like that. Simple, easy. And that way you can be efficient. Moving on. Okay, so interview tips and tricks. And I might get Emily to weigh in on this part a little bit as well, because I'm pretty sure, well, actually it hasn't been decided yet, I think, but I think that interviews this season will probably be happening online with the way things are going. So I just want to get our input on things a little bit later, but I'm just going to say my ideas about the interview first, having gone through the interview process and doing 2 rounds of interviews. So let me just talk about that real quick. So the first thing is that you want to have a narrative. Make sure that make sure the judges understand the source of your motivation to make a difference. Bonus if you stick to your theme. So again, in my sort of interview, I talked a lot about how Team Theory 6 had started that passion of STEM in me, and how I really want to make sure that other students, and especially other, students that were maybe from immigrant communities had the same opportunities that I did. And that really, tied in very well with my community outreach and things like that. So I think that this made my story very cohesive, and which is something that I would recommend that all nominees try to do if they know that they've been nominated. You want to dictate the pace of the interview. So for me, my judges asked me if they would rather, them ask me questions or if I just blabber on. And I picked the blabber on option. It worked out really well for me because I was just able to talk. And they had like 2 questions for me at the end, and that was about it. And because 5 to 7 minutes goes really fast, and you want to make sure that you say all that you really wanted to say. But of course, if you prefer like the calm and dictated pace of like question, answer, all up to you. I would recommend to bring along a resume or a printed document that you can refer to so you never really run out of things to say, because you want to be cramming as many things as you can into that sort of 7-minute time slot. So what I did is that I brought like a list of things that I've just done on my team. It was like a sort of little resume I just made on Canva. And this wasn't to like give it to them or anything. It was just like purely for my personal reference, but just so I would remember all the cohesive aspects of my story and how it tied into my theme. They really helped me a lot. So I would also say to like practice interview questions beforehand, whether it be with a mentor. Honestly, if you want me to ask you interview questions, I can do that. And you want to make sure to mention things that the criteria is based off. For example, I want to volunteer in university so I can stay involved. I want to be a mentor. I want to be a judge in my case, et cetera, et cetera. And you want to mention specific examples and relate your criteria to stories and experiences. So be like, you can, just make up, I'm just going to make up an example right now, but be like, because of XYZ experience I had, just because of my mentor being so influential in me and really supporting my passion for CAD, I was able to start a CAD camp at a nearby elementary school or something like that. So I would say that this is definitely something to look into. Now, Emily, how did you find the interviews this year round? Because I know that, of course, in a Zoom environment, things are very different. It can get kind of difficult, but how did you manage? Like, how did you find the environment?
For me, when I did mine, just make sure my sound's working. For me, when I did mine, it was a bit nerve-wracking because the whole year I'd been preparing for an in-person one, and then my event, of course, is one of the ones that gets changed to virtual. So it was a little nerve-wracking for me, especially because I'm sitting in front of a screen and I have to make sure that I'm looking at them, but then not looking at them because then it doesn't look like I'm looking at them, and then trying to remember things. And so I feel like it was probably pretty similar to what your experience was, because they still asked questions. I had a timer that went off, and when that timer went off, that was nerve-wracking.
That's it.
What was different, though, was that there was only one interview. So, for example, I was a semifinalist at McMaster, but I didn't get an interview after that for finalists. There was only one interview total that went along for all of it. And I think they did do another interview for people who won finalists for Worlds. Not sure about that, though. But that was a little different as well.
Yeah, honestly, I think that in the district system, like getting that 2 interviews is sort of like a big advantage, and that is something to take. That is something that ends up being very useful. But if you can't manage that, like if it's not going to happen because of like COVID and other circumstances, then you kind of just have to make that one interview count, which can be nerve-wracking. You're right, but you just got to make the most of it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And did you have a mentor there or something on that call, or how was that?
I had my stepdad on the call, so pretty much they were on the call. So they do require a mentor of sorts to be on the call. So my stepdad was on the call, and so I had the 2 judges on, and then my stepdad at the bottom where he was muted the whole time, and I just saw him looking at me, which is even more nerve-wracking because I'm pretty sure when it's in person, they're sitting in like the back corner.
Yeah.
So I just saw everyone looking at me, so that's also a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's a bit nerve-wracking being the center of attention, but again, I feel like the most important thing is like the judges want you to succeed. They're all very friendly and nice people. They're not trying to grill you or anything, just for any like future Dean's List nominees. They really do genuinely want you to succeed, and they want you to put your best foot forward. And honestly, if you just tell them, can I have a minute to prepare or something, they're not going to take points off or something if you're just a bit nervous. Honestly, they're people too, so take it step back, relax, focus in the new environment. Like, for example, I think that this year's will probably be on Zoom. So maybe if you do interview practice, just do it over Zoom. Get used to the environment, you know?
Exactly,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think that might be quite useful.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple other tips and tricks. I guess if you're in person, wear a watch just so you can keep track of time. I guess it's easier to do now if you're, in front of a computer and you can just have like your phone in front of you. No need to really dress up. I guess again, this is for in person, but if you're in person and somebody's watching this from like 2 years from now, then you don't really need to dress up. Honestly, I feel like if you're just coming straight out of the pits and you're kind of sweaty, the judges aren't going to mind. They'll just see that you're very involved and engaged and you're just in the moment, and that's what they like to see. And if you're comfortable, bring in a mentor sit in so they can learn what the experience is like. So I know for the Zoom ones, it was mandatory to have a mentor, but honestly, that's great because if you do end up getting the second round, I don't know how they're going to do it this year, but if there is a second round of interviews, then they can give you feedback on your first one and help you improve for your second. And also that sample resume that I talked about is optional. You can bring one if you like, just have a little jot note of things that you've done so you can keep your story cohesive and make sure that you're hitting all your points.
I do want to throw in for the virtual interviews, although you can be comfortable and you have to dress up or anything, for me, it felt more comfortable when I did like put on my 26 polo and act like I was at an event wearing my event wear, just because it felt like I was in that state of mind and was thinking about that stuff. So that if you're doing it virtually this year, for example, that's what I would suggest, just like dress up like you would be going to an event. But of course you don't need to.
Of course, I agree with that though. Like what I meant by dressing up was more of like, if you're at an event and you're like usually in like your hoodie or whatever, and then you go and like put on a suit, like I think that's a bit much. But like, yeah, honestly, just like put on your hoodie, put on your presentation polo, put on your khakis, do whatever you got to do, and just like, try to recreate the atmosphere of our first event, because we all know and love that atmosphere and that's what we're comfortable with. So just try to get into that headspace basically. So I think I have 13 minutes left. So now I just want to open up the floor to potential questions from the producers in the Twitch chat. There's also my email, so you can contact me for whatever inquiries you may have. But I would love to spend the next 10-ish minutes just answering questions and all that jazz. So producers, let me know if there are any questions. Yes, no, maybe so.
Okay, so you do have a question from Mr. Bredner that says, how did it feel when your name was called out at Champs for the Dean's List Award?
Oh boy, okay, this is a funny feeling. Okay, so me and my mentor at the time, Tibor, were just kind of sitting in that front row, and we were just chatting to each other. Somebody else from 1923 came and sat by us, the Midnight Inventors, and then there was somebody from the Air Force in front of us. It was felt kind of intimidating. I didn't really know what was going on. I was like, oh my gosh, there's Woody over there. And whoa, Don Bosey and Dean Kamen are on the stage, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I was just kind of taking in the moment. And then as soon as I sat down, I turned to Tibor and I'm like, I'll make a bet with you. If I don't win, I'll get you Tim Hortons or something. And then he's like, so if you win, then I have to get you Tim Hortons. I'm like, yeah. So I wasn't thinking, like, I was just going into it like, I'm just here to have a good time, listen to the speeches, all that jazz. Was not expecting to win at all, like in the slightest. And then I heard Bolton, Ontario, Canada. I just about lost my mind. But none of that showed on my face. I was so stone cold. And I went up, got my award, and I was honestly just like, I was about to walk off because I didn't realize that they were taking pictures, which I should have realized in the moment because everyone before me had taken pictures. But I was just totally ready to walk off, and then Dean pulled me back and he was like, hey, enjoy the moment, take some pictures. And I was like, okay. And then I distinctly remember like coming off to the side and then like shaking all like the other Dean's List winners' hands. And then I remember you actually, Mr. B, you were, I was like on the stage and you came up to like the side of the stage. I like shook my hand that way. And that was honestly a really memorable moment for me. So thank you for doing that. And honestly, it was a crazy feeling. And then for the rest of the day, I just turned into like this professionalism mode because they had us meeting with like the Dean of Engineering from Yale and like Dean of Admissions from MIT and stuff like that. So I was like in my full-blown professionalism mode. So I didn't really process everything till like the day after or like 2 days after. But like in that moment, like Tibor just like leaped on me and like gave me a big hug, and that was pretty awesome. And honestly, very exhilarating, and probably a moment that I'm gonna remember forever. So yeah, thank you so much for the question. I guess I can just stop sharing and I can just look at the Twitch chat. So let me just do that. Okay, there we go. So I can just look at the Twitch chat straight up.
Oh, that works too.
Yeah, okay. How can we encourage every FTC and FRC team to submit a Dean's List nomination? There are so many great students on teams. I would love to see every team nominate one of their great first students. Absolutely, I 100% agree with the sentiment. I would love to see every single team nominate one of their great first students. So I think that the way, or like the biggest issue, I guess, in terms of doing a Dean's List nomination is like people don't really know where to start. And I feel like people need that initial sort of push and support that they need. And I feel like 4,000 character essay can be intimidating and they don't really know who to nominate. So I think like presentations like these are like a good place to start. There are a lot of resources out there. How can we encourage teams specifically? I feel like it's like a culture thing, right? You just want to try to get the team cultures to the point where every mentor wants to submit a nominee because they're just trying to tell them about, they're trying to show their appreciation for the work that they put into the team. And I feel like if you treat it as a sort of appreciation thing, that can be like the motivation for, having a Dean's List nominee. Or you can like maybe even have the whole team together. And maybe the whole team can be like, hey, we really recognize something that our team captain has done. Or we really recognize the outreach efforts that this individual has put in. How about we like write them a Dean's List nomination? And of course, at the end of the day, like the mentors are the one that's like approving and submitting. But say even like if a bunch of students want to tag team and recognize somebody who's made a huge contribution, then by all means go ahead. I think that's absolutely incredible. And I think that every team should be submitting at least one, if not two Dean's List nominations. Oh, and thank you for that, Artie. Yes, it was kind of a very surreal moment. Producers, do you have any questions?
So here, I have a question for you.
Okay,
Now
yeah,
that
Nico.
now that
I agree.
here, I have a question.
Yeah.
Now that you're in university, and now that you're no longer on a team, and now you're mentoring and you're alumni, how has Dean List affected what you're doing now?
So Dean's List ends up being pretty useful for universities and that type of thing. Like a lot of universities do want to recruit Dean's List students. I didn't end up going to like one of like the actual like Dean's List universities, but I'm pretty sure like it did definitely help me in the application process. I'm studying physics and philosophy at Tufts University in Boston right now. So you can see I'm in my dorm, just chilling. But I think that Dean's List has absolutely made me sure that I want to stay more involved with FIRST, as I progress. So absolutely getting into judging and like as I can, and getting into mentoring. I feel like Dean's List like gave me that extra sort of oomph that I wanted. Like this is something that I want to be a part of my life because it's very rewarding to me personally. And also the friendships that I've made through Dean's List, like some of my best friends in the entire world are some of the other Dean's List winners and people I've met like at that WPI Frontiers program. And they're all incredible people. And I feel like the people that I've met through Dean's List have been the most rewarding part of it. And I think that it's definitely been very life-changing for me. So I think that, yeah, it's definitely influenced my career path, I guess. Yeah. And I think that Woody Flowers especially has influenced my desire to become a professor. So I think that's also been a very big inspiration.
Yeah. I think Artie just asked us a question in the chat, very similar. How has Dean's List or being at FIRST contributed to where you are today?
Well, I think that Dean's List is like geared towards universities as a very like sort of, first type of seal of approval type of stamp award, where it's like, this person is first approved, enjoy. So that can be a really good boost in like university applications. I know for Canadian universities, they don't really always look at that stuff, but American universities, they do. So it's a bit of a big impact in terms of that. And honestly, being in first has 100% contributed to where I am today, because all these skills that I've compiled over the past years, they've all been derived from first. Public speaking, honestly, I didn't ever think that I'd be like this into public speaking as I am right now, but I absolutely adore it. And I think a big part of that is by doing those sponsorship presentations. And I think that, initial spark that I had when I just saw a judge asking somebody on my team a question in the pits, I'm like, I want to do that. I absolutely want to do that. And I think that first can give so many students these sort of, this is what I want to do with my life moments. And I think that's really, really rewarding. For me, it was, I know what I want to do with my life, and it's that I want to educate others as a professor. And for other people, maybe, I want to create things as an engineer, or I want to solve the world's problems. And I feel like first imbues people with that, with that sort of energy. Any advice for future Dean's List nominees or winners? Well, for winners, you're just kind of set. You're just taking all the action, have some fun, meet your fellow winners. It's a good time. But for the future Dean's List nominees, well, watch this presentation, I suppose. It'll tell you everything you need to know. Or honestly, talk to as many people as you can. Don't only just rely on my experience. Talk to other nominees, talk to your mentors, and see how the best way is that you can portray your story. And I think that the way you should try to approach the nomination is like, when I was nominated by my team, the mindset I had was, I am so honored to be nominated by my team, that my team recognizes that I have made a sort of special impact, and my mentors are proud of me, basically. That's like the biggest thing, right? And I feel like everything like after that, like winning at, winning at Durham, winning at DCMP, winning at Worlds, icing on the cake, because at the end of the day, what matters is the contribution that I've made on my team and my community and the people around me. So I think that that's the mindset, I guess, the ideal Dean's List mindset that I would try to get into. Yeah. So I think that just about concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for, being wonderful producers. Love to see it.
All right. So great presentation, Param. A lot of useful advice there. I hope you guys all enjoyed that. And that is going to conclude this segment for now.